What's up, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here, and earlier this week I did an Adventures in Speed Reading video, and briefly I talked about Madame Xanadu, Volume 1, Disenchanted. And in that video, I mentioned that I was going to be doing a full-on, more in-depth review of this book. And this collects the first 10 issues of the Matt Wagner, Amy Reeder Hadley, Madame Xanadu series. And I think there's 5 trades. I'm not sure on that. I think there's 5, though. And this is basically an extended origin story from Madame Xanadu. It starts, and it's kind of neat. It's 10 issues long, and it's 5 2-issue arcs. And I thought that was a nice length for each story. So it gives you a wide berth of a different kinds of stories that Madame Xanadu has been part of over the centuries. And so I really liked that it gives you a different variety for each story, and it's not like just 2 stories showing her in 2 different time periods. It's several stories, and they're all just long enough to get the point across. Some of them, for example, the one set in the late 30s, early 40s, or the one during the fall of Camelot, I would have been just fine if those had been a little longer, but then it would have kind of felt uneven because the stories set during the Marco Polo expedition or the French Revolution, I didn't have to have those stories be as long, and so it would have been unfair for some of the stories to be longer and some of them to only be 2 issues long. So I think each issue is just long enough, or each story is just long enough. They don't drag on too much, and even for the ones like, I really enjoyed the one that was the Fall of Camelot, even if you enjoy it, it's not dragging it on too much. I feel like if it had been, say, a 4-issue arc that shows the Fall of Camelot, that might have been dragging it on a little too much. And I've said all of this in my Adventures in Speed Reading video. What I did not talk about is the character herself. And what happens is, in each of these stories, Madame Xanadu comes across the Phantom Stranger. And basically, in each story, he has some kind of goal in mind for whatever is going on in that time period that she's living in at that time. And he has something that needs to happen for the greater good of mankind. And usually when he tells her, okay, this has to happen, she reacts very strongly against that. She says, no, you're an inhuman monster. I'm not going to let Jack the Ripper keep killing people. That's one of the stories, is the Jack the Ripper killings. She doesn't want that to keep going. But then it turns out, this is a little bit of a spoiler for that story, but Jason Blood, the human half of the demon Etrigan, he had impregnated one of the prostitutes that Jack the Ripper kills, and the Phantom Stranger was afraid that if Jack the Ripper is caught before he needs to be, that this baby would be born and would become this really monstrous tyrant in the 20th century. And so Phantom Stranger is saying, yes, it's very terrible that Jack the Ripper is out killing all these people, but it's also very terrible that Etrigan the demon is on our planet. And he kind of throws this in Madame Xanadu's face. He says, if you had just listened to me back in the Fall of Camelot, and you had defeated Merlin and kind of captured him and subdued him when I told you to, then he wouldn't have released Etrigan the demon into the world. But basically, in every single one of these time periods, the Phantom Stranger tells her to do something, and she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then something really bad happens. For example, Etrigan the demon is released onto the planet, or something else. And the book, I feel like it wants you to be on Madame Xanadu's side, but I'm not. Every single one of these stories, I'm kind of more on the Phantom Stranger's side, and I don't really feel like, I'm not sure if the book is trying very hard to make her more sympathetic, or if they're trying to kind of show both their points of view, show her point of view and show the Phantom Stranger's point of view. Because it's very odd to me that somebody who is immortal would care so much for somebody who, in their own blink of an eye, is going to die in, no time at all. I would think that someone who's immortal would show less compassion for the humans who are dying around them. But, compassion in a character, that's good, but then to a fault. Because this character, Madame Xanadu, she does things that she thinks are right, but then it winds up blowing up in her face, and then it doesn't ever seem like she ever takes responsibility for her actions. At the very end of the book, she is trying to stop the Phantom Stranger once and for all, and then she, through her own inaction, allows something else to happen. And the book kind of leaves it up in the air. Was this the right thing for her to do, or should she have taken some action? And I don't ever feel like she really learns her lesson in any of these stories. Every time, she will do something, and then it's not what the Phantom Stranger wanted to happen, and then it's like, well, maybe next time I'm just going to kill the Phantom Stranger. But then, I guess what I'm saying is, I don't find her to be as likable a protagonist as I think the book wants me to find her. I think the book thinks that she's more likable than what she is. And it's not even that she's just a wildly despicable character, it's that she keeps coming through the same character arcs and keeps failing to see her mistakes and keeps failing to learn these lessons in every time period. I feel like after, encountering the Phantom Stranger twice, and 2 times he says, you need to do this, this, and this, or this will happen, and then she doesn't do those things, after a while, I kind of feel like she would learn, hey, maybe the Phantom Stranger's onto something. Maybe the next time he tells me to do something, I should just do it. That's really my biggest gripe with this book, and I didn't mention that in my Adventures in Speed Reading video because I did enjoy the book overall. I just feel like the main character is not as likable as she could be. If you are into books that show like an immortal who is at all these crucial points in history, if you like that kind of thing, you will love this book. For me, that usually gets on my nerves. In this case, it didn't bother me as much because it's more focused on the characters. It's more focused on Madame Xanadu and the Phantom Stranger. It's not as focused on her impact on the entire planet, although we do get to see that she had an impact on the fall of Camelot, and she had an impact on the Whitechapel killings and the French Revolution. She has an impact on these points in time, but for me, whenever you have an immortal, and it's like, yeah, I was at the Battle of Troy, and I was at the French Revolution, and all these things. She wasn't at the Battle of Troy, that's just an example, but it always strikes me as very false, because, if I'm immortal, 600 years from now, I'm not going to tell you that I knew President Obama, who would be a famous figure from the time period that I was around. It doesn't necessarily make sense that just because you're immortal, that you would be at all of these really crucial points in time. I want to see the story where some immortal says, yeah, I'm 600 years old, but no, that doesn't mean that I knew John F. Kennedy, or Attila the Hun, or any of these famous figures in time. I knew a whole bunch of really boring people that you've never heard of. I want to see that story someday. But other than that, I did enjoy this book, and I do plan on getting future volumes of this series, because I'm very interested to see, is it just going to be set in the present day for the rest of this series, or is it going to go back and do other stories set in different time periods? Either way, I'm looking forward to reading more from Madame Xanadu, and I hope that my review was a little bit more in-depth to your liking than it was in the Adventures in Speed Reading video, and I will see you guys later on in the week with a different video. So I'll catch you guys then. Have a great rest of the day. Peace out.